So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Brenda. This is our one of those many outreach meetings, public meetings. This is actually the fourth public meeting. Thank you so much for taking time during your lunchtime to join us. So today we'll talk about the process. If we can go to the next slide, Jacob. We can talk about, we'll very briefly once again touch upon what is general plan. We've been talking about it a lot, so we'll really shorten that part. And we'll talk a little bit about how this particular plan is being developed. We'll give you some of the timelines and the process. And then we'll also review what we've heard from you and many people, like thousands of people so far. We'll show you the draft that's coming along, just the table of contents, so that you can see that it's also being prepared. And then the main agenda today is to look at the land use map and the scenarios. And I am with four of my colleagues, Brenda Clark, Sana Warner, and Jacob Payne. Jacob and I will do the presentation in a tag team manner. Let's go to the next one, Jacob. Okay, so general plan, as you know, is like a constitution for the city in terms of the physical development. It is that high-level vision and the guidance that really is provided to any other plans, like the infrastructure plans, like, for example, transportation and water master plan. And the other high-level plans, for example, the character area plans, forestry master plan, climate action master plan. And then below that are the development guidelines and implementation plan. We have Apache redevelopment plan, for example, and many design guidelines by Smith Hub and Maker districts and so on. And then finally, these plans are all implemented through regulatory and codes and the standard mechanism that we use, like the zoning ordinance and engineering standards. So that's, we are talking about general plan today. Just wanted to give you an overview where it fits in the scheme of things. Next one. Here's a quick timeline. It's a little difficult to read. We'll go into a little more detail towards the end, but it completes 1 year that we have actually officially begun this process. And we've gone through lots of meetings, the adoption of the public involvement plan, and then also creation of the groups that guide and that also help us provide the input into the plan, and then lots of other outreach meetings. And then after this, we will be going through an adoption process once we begin to do the draft and release the draft. And again, that will go into a little more detail towards the end, but it's a snapshot of the almost 2-year-long process. Next one. Okay, so how is Tempe Tomorrow General Plan being developed? Next one. Basically, we refer to the previous plans because we just build on what we already have, what has been approved. So we have what is called the 2040 plan that was ratified by the voters in 2014. And then, of course, we take a lot of guidance and input from the council and appointed commissions. The appointed commission for the general plan is the community working group that has 17 members. We meet every first Tuesday of the month at the library, and then we take a guidance and advice from them. We also have a technical advisory group, which is a very large one with about 70 members that has staff, and that also has a representation from 16 boards and commission of the city, and also many partners that we have like ASU, Downtown Tempe Authority, Maricopa Association of Government, and so on. But more importantly, we take input and guidance from all the different boards, commission, and public in general, stakeholders, developers, community members, focus groups like nonprofit businesses. And then in the process, we have conducted many public meetings and open houses. Just for example, today we have one now and one at 6 p.m. And then we also go to events, like we went to the Art and Parks event and then interfaced with some 1,000 people there. So that's how we actually gather all that information and input. Next one. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. I'm just going to show you what we generally heard. These are only the themes, and Jacob will go into a little more detail about the actual surveys and processes that we did. I'm not going to read this slide, but basically across all the meetings, there are some common themes and threads that people are interested in to be incorporated into the general plan. They want access and proximity to amenities, transit, parks, and those kind of things. They want accessibility, mix of housing types. There is an interest in creating healthy regions. It is called blue zones, and many other ideas about walkability, the nature, public art, shade everywhere, and water features and affordable housing. So there's a number of things that are common to all the different meetings that we go to. Specialized groups tell us something very specific that interests them, but these are some of the things that really help us move the general plan drafting forward. Let's go to the next one. So based on everything that we hear and based on everything that was previously adopted, that the city has been continuing, any lessons that we have learned, and then what is required by the Arizona statute, because the general plan requires certain elements to be included into the general plan. We have begun to draft the plan, and then I'm just showing you on slide with how the cover page is proposed on the right side. That will be the cover page of Tempe Tomorrow, General Plan 2050. It will have 7 chapters and appendices. Those chapters are to organize the 20 different elements that Arizona mandates. And then Tempe, in addition, has 6 different elements into the plan. So for example, introduction, that is the first chapter, will talk about the processes, how it was developed, how the public outreach was conducted, and how it is going to be implemented. Then the second chapter is going to be land use and development. And it also talks about how the general plan could be amended after it is adopted, because this is not a fixed document. This is a high-level policy that can change depending on the requirements of the community. Other chapter will be economic development, and it will have several elements in there. Circulation means basically transportation and walkability. And we used to call a conservation chapter that is going to be now renamed as sustainability and resilience, because sustainability and resilience is now a very important theme for Tempe. We actually have an Office of Sustainability and Resilience that was created after the last general plan was ratified by the voters. So that would be the name of the chapter. The elements remains the same. You know, it includes like conservation, it includes land remediation, floodplain, wildlife, and those kind of things. The other chapter is going to be open space, recreation, and cultural amenities, then public facilities and services to talk about utilities, police and fire that we provide. And then there's going to be a large and long appendices, about 65, 70 pages, if people want to go into a little more detail about the data. And then all of this will include about those 20 mandated elements and 6 additional elements. The document probably will be about 250, 300 pages. Let's go to the next one. Now I'm going to invite my colleague, Jacob Payne, to talk about what we've heard and then what is the next process that we're taking forward. Jacob, to you.
Yep. Thank you, Ambika. So hello, everybody. I'm Jacob Payne, planner, City of Tempe. So I'm going to go over and cover some of the past outreach efforts that we've done and talk about a bit of what we've heard. So we began our public outreach for the general plan back last summer with the Kickoff Survey. So this was 10 questions about values and preferences the community members held for Tempe's future. So it was a combination of open-ended, ranking type questions, a total of 356 respondents to that, which is a really good turnout for a survey. Following that, we held our first public workshop for the general plan, which was at the Legoland Discovery Center at the Arizona Mills Mall. We wanted to do something engaging and interactive. So with the help of a consultant, we came up with the workshop where participants were using Legos and other small household items to build ideal models of Tempe. And then we had everybody share a bit about their model and discuss, common themes, things that people thought made for a good city. So there was 153 attendees there. And then running concurrently with that meeting, we opened our second survey, which got 115 responses. And then back in January, we did our second public meeting. This was a hybrid meeting. So there was a virtual component over Zoom, just like we're doing today. But in addition, we did a in-person open house at the Tempe Library, where people could walk around and talk with city staff members about, pertinent chapters of the general plan and any questions that they had. And then we opened our third survey at that time, which was our most well-received survey of 420 responses. Last month, we held a pair of meetings to get input from our nonprofit community as well as our business community in Tempe. These were both over Zoom, and we focused on specific areas of the general plan that these groups specialize in. So for example, economic development, historic preservation, and sustainability, to name a few. Most recently, 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting with the Apache ASL Trails community. This is a residential community where the residents are deaf or hard of hearing. So with the help of some American Sign Language interpreters, we conducted a dotocracy, which is essentially a method of public meetings where people vote using stickers to show priorities and to spark discussion about things that they want to see in the general plan and what their vision for Tempe's future would be. So up next, I'm going to talk a bit about the land use and density map of the general plan. This is a pretty big component of the general plan, and it's really one of the most often utilized parts of a general plan. So general plan land use designation is what land uses are expected to occupy what areas of the city over the 30 years. That's the planning timeframe of the plan. A land use designation doesn't necessarily mean that land will change immediately, but rather that it's likely to change or it's desirable to change sometime over the next 30 years. Land use on a general plan is not zoning, and it does not change zoning, but it can support zoning changes in the future. So for example, if there's a property that is residentially zoned and designated mixed use in the general plan, it could continue to be residentially zoned indefinitely. But if somebody came along and wanted to redevelop the site and change zoning, the general plan is supportive of that. So that's kind of how it's used in this context. In our current general plan 2040, this was accomplished through two maps. There's a land use map on the left and the residential density map on the right. The map on the left you can see is using land use designations: residential, commercial, mixed use industrial, which is a land use that is for a combination of residential, commercial, and appropriate light industrial users. That's something that was created after the plan was approved back in 2019, specifically for the Maker District and Smith Innovation Hub, if you're familiar with those districts. It also includes uses like civic, which is for public spaces, nonprofit spaces, educational for schools, public open space, and public recreation, cultural amenities, which would be like the library or the TCA. The map on the right shows the densities, which for 2040 were in range from low density, which is 3 dwelling units or less per acre, up to that brown, which is the high density urban core, which is 65 dwelling units and above. Also on the density map, I'm going to point out the red areas. Those are cultural resource. The cultural resource area was something that was created for General Plan 2030 back in the early 2000s and has been kept with each plan update. This designation is basically for neighborhoods with some historic value that want to be protected from increased density. So what that designation does is it limits density to what was allowed by the zoning back in 2003 when they were first drawn on there. So for the Tempe Tomorrow General Plan 2050 update, we're going to be combining those two maps, the land use and the residential density. The reasoning for this is that it would be easier to interpret. It's less combinations of categories. This is also convention. The city of Tempe was the only city in the valley to have two maps like this. So doing this is not, it's normal. It's commonplace among things, among cities in the valley, among cities all over. So we're doing this to make it better for customers to understand it, residents to understand what designation the areas have, and overall, it's a more simple approach to land use planning. So we have today 3 land use maps of proposed scenarios for the General Plan 2050. So we're going to go look at them. But first, I wanted to show what the combinations of land use types look like. So that's what I'm showing here on this slide. So we have the cultural resources is staying as I was previously describing, with the limited density to what was allowed by zoning in 2003. With following that is 2 single family land use designations. There's the large lot, which is that less than 3, and the single family traditional less than 9. And that's, the typical single family 6,000 square foot lots that we see across the city. Following that, there's 2 multifamily land use designations up to 25 dwelling units per acre and up to 45 dwelling units per acre. And then under that are mixed use categories, which there are 5 of. So these are the first 3 are the standard combination of residential, commercial that most people think of when they imagine mixed use. And those have density caps that, to fit appropriate neighborhoods where density could be compatible. So there's the moderate, which is 45 dwelling units and less, the high, which goes up to 65, and the urban, which does not have the density cap. So this is the equivalent of the urban core density from our current general plan 2040. Then there are the 2 mixed use industrials, which, as I mentioned, were created through an amendment to the general plan 2040. They're to focus on our hub districts where we could see mixed use products where there's perhaps light industrial users, in addition to commercial and residential users. So there's the low version of that, which is up to 25 dwelling units per acre, and the moderate, which is up to 45 dwelling units per acre. The next couple are pretty self-explanatory. There's industrial, office, manufacturing, commercial, retail services, medical, civic spaces, educational, open space, and the recreation cultural designations. So with that, here are the 3 scenarios that we have drafted together. I'm going to give brief explanation on each of them, and then when we get to the end of the presentation and there's any questions, I can pull up a more high resolution version of this so we can look at them a little closer if you have any comments or questions. So starting off with the first scenario on the left. So in scenario 1, we've focused the land use changes in areas along the transit corridor, expansions to mixed use in areas where it was already present. So, adjacency, increased density along the Apache light rail corridor. So, and then in addition to that, there's some changes that are present in all 3 scenarios. So I'm going to go through them right now, but just know that the next things I'm about to say are common across all 3. So the Arizona Mills Mall and the Emerald Center are identified as mixed use for potential redevelopment or new development at the sites. The cultural resource area has been expanded near Mitchell Park to include an area that was already surrounded by designated cultural resource area. And the last thing common to all 3 is the area along McClintock Drive north of the 202 being identified as the mixed use industrial category. So moving to scenario 2, this one is expanding on the things from scenario 1 with more increased mixed use changes in density a bit further away from transit corridors and along the major arterials. And scenario 3 then expands more from scenario 2, incorporating mixed use at older commercial centers where redevelopment might be desirable and along major arterials. So I'm going to move on past these, but once we get to the end, if there's any questions, we can bring this back up. So I'm moving on to the next steps in our general plan process. So we have, as of today, our 4th survey is available online, and I encourage you all to go and take it and give feedback. The survey is going to show you the same 3 map scenarios that I presented you here. It's going to give you options to tell us what you like about them, what you dislike about them, and to select one that you prefer. It's also going to ask you general questions about priorities for the general plan, what things that you think should be emphasized. And then moving forward from here, our next step in this process is we're going to go to the City Council work study session with our draft. That's where they're going to get a chance to look at it first and give us some ideas moving forward. We're also going to be visiting a number of Tempe's boards and commissions over the next couple months. Some of them may give us a recommendation of approval. Some of them are just informative to give us, some comments and feedback. And then in May, we will have a draft review meeting where we'll have a published draft for everybody to read and look through and give comment about that. So there'll be more details on that meeting to come soon. And then moving past that, our last leg of this is we're going to head to Development Review Commission in June on the 27th and in July on the 25th, before finally heading into City Council approval, which will be August 10th and 24th is the meetings. And then following that, the last thing will be that it'll appear on a ballot in March of 2024 for a vote at large. So with that, here's their contact information for all of us on the team, and we can go ahead and open up for questions or comments at this time.
Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Ambika. We have a comment from Mark Roseland to asking to please show the higher resolution maps so we can go back to the alternatives.
All right, I've got that open right here. And then if anybody wants me to zoom in on a specific area or anything, just let me know.
Let's maybe zoom in, starting with scenario 1. Tim will be sending the PDF of this after the meeting. We have to make a small update. Thank you. That's a good question, though.
When people who go to survey, you can actually open them one by one and really enlarge them as you wish. But today we can zoom in and enlarge the way that you want here.
And thank you, Mark. Mark wants to know if we can also provide captions for these MAUs that explain the difference between them.
Sure. We have a little explanation, and like Brenda said, we can send out a PDF version of this, and it'll also be on the survey. But down here in the bottom left is a little explanation of kind of what I've mentioned before explaining them. It's not as detailed. If there's a desire for it, we could take what I have written and add that to this perhaps and do an update that way.
Jacob, could you just walk through the scenarios again, looking at one map at a time? It was really hard to understand the differences when you were talking about them, looking at 3 of them so small.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that. So I'll start again from reading what I had written about the scenarios and explaining them. So we'll start here on the right. This one is scenario 1. I'm going to have to cut off a little bit at the top and bottom, just know that there's no changes over there. So scenario 1 is land use changes focused on transit corridors, and expansion of mixed use in areas that it was already present. So expanding adjacent to mixed use areas. So there's an increase of residential density along the Apache and light rail corridor. And then the things that are common to all the maps is the changes to the Arizona Mills, the Emerald Center where IKEA is located, and the addition of the cultural resource in the Mitchell Park area, and the changes up here to McClintock north of the 202.
And then Jacob, the areas in black, those are the ones where changes are happening, right?
Correct. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Anything that's outlined in black is the proposed change. Anything that is just colored in, that is a result of the combination of the 2040 map. So there's no changes proposed anywhere where there's not a black outline. Thank you, Brenda.
Jacob, maybe you can take one lead, maybe the northern portion and just one map and enlarge it a little bit to fill the screen.
Is that better?
Yeah. So hopefully people can see what we are talking about.
Right.
We can always go to other areas if you wish. But obviously the majority of the changes are to the north of 60.
So then for scenario 2, it's all the same changes from scenario 1 with some additional ones. So they're building upon each other. So this scenario 2 has more increased density and additional mixed use areas that might be a little bit further away from transit corridors than were proposed in scenario 1, and additional mixed use along some of the major arterials, like you can see over here on Southern.
I've got a question. I apologize. First off, I joined the call a little bit late, but the tax implications between each of these scenarios that you're showing here, are those detailed anywhere? Are they already paid for? Are they going to be up for votes in the future bond elections? How is this all going to be paid for?
I can respond to that initially. There's no direct tax implications from the general plan designation because it's a vision for the coming 30 years. And what it is trying to do is to accommodate the projected growth that we see that Maricopa Association of Government, census, and other people are telling us what will happen by 2050. There will be more people, so some people need to be accommodated. What usually happens is once the general plans are approved, obviously it gets to be ratified by voters by election in March 2024, if everything goes good. Then if there are some zoning changes later on that people propose based on this, then that might have certain tax implications. Now, if you're talking about how the infrastructure and other elements are going to be funded, and of course that this city does have many other mechanisms, including bonds and including the development impact fees. But of all of these, when we begin to think about it in the general plan, we do have how much water is going to be required. There's a water chapter that basically says we're going to be good until 2050 with the growth. Same thing about transportation. So all of those things are kind of considered. And that is one of the reasons why we do general plan, because all of those things are considered. Does that respond to your question, or do you have something specific?
Nothing specific, but if I'm understanding you correctly, it's kind of implied that these are essentially going to be, for lack of a better word, I'm just going to say policy changes or changes that will be implemented. But if there's something that develops out of that, then there's going to be a need for a source of funding for that. Is that correct?
That is generally correct. If you remember that big pyramid that I showed in the beginning, the general plan is absolutely, like you said, it's a very high level vision and policy.
Right.
And based on that, there will be water master plan, there will be transportation master plan. For the transportation master plan, there will be capital improvement projects that will be designated by the city and through the bonds and many other things that will happen. So what this does is it gives you that kind of guiding principles and policies for the coming 30 years. And many things like I showed in that pyramid will begin to flow one by one based on the vision that gets approved. So a lot of those details will happen not at the general plan level, but what the general plan basically directs.
Okay, I see. I think that does answer the question. One follow-up question, and I understand that the blackened sections are what's under the proposed, and again, I apologize. If you were to zoom out, does it include what all the other color coding is, like the red and the green, et cetera? I know it's not impacted directly by this call, but I am curious about that. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much.
If you, and we encourage you obviously
Discovered.
to take the survey after this. The survey has the full version of this that you can view on your computer, and you could save it. It's like its own pop-out page, but there's a legend. It'll just be at the bottom. I just zoomed in so that we could focus on the area, but just for reference, this is the legend again.
Okay. Is there anything specific to the downtown area that falls under the single family that would be impacted by it? So I guess in particular, I'm looking at the yellows sort of in that downtown area that are denoted as residential. Is there anything impacted?
Most of the single family residential that's near downtown has been designated as the cultural resource, and that's to protect from increased density. So as you can see, there's not a lot of yellow that exists near downtown.
Okay, and if I were to, once I get the PDF, if I were to go ahead and zoom in, if there were just small traces of it, I would be able to see that on that map?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you can see that, and what Jacob is explaining is you see those purple pinkish color.
Yes, I see
they
that.
Are they are mostly the single family residential areas. And what the cultural resources areas say is any density that was in 2003 in place is what is going to remain. There's not going to be any increase on that. So there's a lot of protection and preservation of the existing neighborhoods and single family areas. So that's you have to see both the yellow and the pink colors, and those things have not changed. As a matter of fact, what Jacob said, a few places they have been added, and one or two places where it was inappropriate, like at the junction of the Mill Avenue and University Drive, for example, that CVS, that was actually not cultural resources area, so that has been changed a little bit. So yes, that's what it is. And when you, if you blow up the PDF and if you look at what we have right now, it's kind of pretty similar.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Mark wants to know how, if at all, does the current Coyotes district proposal reflected in these plan scenarios?
Okay, so that has its own process. Right now, it's ongoing. Actually, I think there's a vote that's coming up. And that was based on what is the plan right now, the general plan and many other intergovernmental agreements and many changes that are happening. So that once that is approved, whatever way that it goes by the council is something that will be taken into account into the mapping. But that's something that is up for the votes. That's being discussed separately. Brian, if you're online, if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, thank you, Ambika. So currently the resolution of the general plan amendment that the city council adopted for the Coyotes plan is reflected on this proposed plan. So if it's ratified by the voters, then it will remain as proposed on this plan. If it's not ratified by the voters, then city council has an option to remove it entirely, the mixed use designation, or propose something different in its place. But that'll be up to council to decide come August. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from David Sokolowski. Can you please explain the difference between map 2 and 3 and point out some differences, some examples?
Sure. So like I mentioned, they're kind of, I explained it to Brenda, they're like nesting dolls. So the changes in map 2 are in map 3, the changes in map 1 are in map 2 and in map 3. So this one on the screen at the moment is currently scenario 2. So focusing on the changes up here in North Tempe. So scenario 2 introduces some of the mixed use designations here along Southern, increases the densities along the light rail corridor. So you can see a lot of this is designated as the lightest gray, which is the mixed use up to 45, and some of the changes to this medium gray, which is the mixed use up to 65 dwelling units per acre. And in some places, the increase of the urban core mixed use density. And then looking at scenario 3, this is where you can see that some of the areas like down here, this is the area that is north of Broadway between McClintock and Rural. This area in scenario 3 has now been drawn in as the mixed use as opposed to the residential that it was shown in scenario 2. There's more increase of mixed use in the area right here along, this is Hayden Lane, east of McClintock, some more high density here along University Drive, also in this area. Also some changes up in North Tempe from scenario 2 to 3. The increase of density from this corner of, I believe that is McKellips and Scottsdale Road, to a higher designation of a mixed use than it was shown in scenario 2. Also the inclusion of the intersection at Priest and University as a mixed use is something that's unique to scenario 3. Does that help, David?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mark wants to know, Mark Roseland, which scenario map is most aligned with the 15, 10-minute city aspiration, the 20-minute city, I believe.
I can respond to that, and maybe Jacob and other people can also join. Actually, all of these maps are pretty much aligned with the 20 minutes vision, because that's one of the foundations and the vision in the plan to have transit availability and have a lot of compact and higher density development along transit, and then also along the nodes of transportation, and then also to have the good density that takes care of all that growth that is projected by 2050, which is going to be maybe another 50, 60, 70,000 people. So, sometimes people get confused that, hey, we're making plans for growth. We are actually making plans to accommodate growth that is being projected. So all of them will align, but if it is a little more dense, like more likely, then we can also do a combination of all these 3 different scenarios. If it is like scenario 2 and 3, that's even better, because they're more compact And the more closer the residential areas are to the amenities, the easier it is to make it a 20-minute city. Jacob, anything you would like to add between the three?
Yeah, I would like to add that in the general plan, it existed in the 2040 plan, and we're revising this map for the 2050 plan. There's a map that's of land use hubs. And the idea of the land use hub is the place where, services, retail, medical users that, the things that people need to be within 20 minutes of where they should go in the city to make sure that people have access to them within the 20-minute bike, walk, or transit ride. So we use that map to inform a lot of decisions, as in addition with public feedback about where people wanted to see. But you can see some areas from scenario 3 where there's mixed use at corners in areas that were identified as land use hubs or growth areas in the plan. So to get mixed use there would, allow for higher density commercial, more opportunities to give people the amenities that they need on a day-to-day basis closer to where they live.
Yeah, exactly. Does that help you, Mark? You know these things very well because you practice it and you teach it. And we do discuss it quite a bit in the community working group and also at the technical advisory group. We clarify that the 20-minute or 15-minute, 20-minute city means from any residential unit. Within 20 minutes, there should be all those amenities available by walking, transit, or bicycle. That is without the use of the car. It doesn't mean that from one point of the city to another point of the city, you should be able to go there in 20 minutes, but all these amenities for every resident should be available. And that's why what Jacob talked about, the land use hubs and the economic growth areas make that possible. I hope that makes sense to you.
It does. Thank you, Ambika.
Okay, excellent. Are there any other questions? And feel free, you're welcome to, you don't have to type it in, you're welcome to unmute yourself if you'd like. Okay, hearing none, we will go ahead and remind you that the survey is open at tempe.gov/forum. We will send out this map probably within the hour after this meeting. Just want to make a small update. And if you have any questions, feel free to email the team at 2050@tempe.gov. And thank you so much for your time. We also have a meeting at 6 p.m. if you have any friends that would like to attend. Thank you.
Or if you like it so much, you'd like to hear it again, please come back.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.